I'm a clinical psychologist affiliated with Harvard Medical School and the Massachusetts School of Professional Psychology in Boston. In my 20 years of professional practice, I have never faced a more challenging and disheartening situation than providing volunteer mental health relief services to the victims of the violent raid that took place at the Michael Bianco factory in New Bedford, Massachusetts on March 6, 2007. One of the most well-established facts in the mental health disciplines is that abrupt separations of children from their parents, particularly their mothers, are among the most severely traumatic experiences that a child can undergo. When these traumatic separations are perpetrated by our nation's law enforcement agencies, ironically in the name of protecting its citizens, it creates deep feelings of anger, powerlessness, and frustration. It leaves us with a desperate attempt to make meaning out of some such senseless acts. But how can one make sense of violence against children, regardless of the justification? If we define terrorism as systematic, premeditated acts of violence that provoke feelings of terror in targeted victims, there's no better definition to describe these events. But why? When I ask myself this question, the face of Mariela comes to mind. Mariela is a 7-year-old girl from Guatemala. I interviewed her in the church's basement while she sat next to her father. She displays symptoms typical of a post-traumatic stress reaction, like severe nervousness, guardedness, hypervigilance, and irritability. Her father reported that she was losing weight and that she had severe insomnia and violent nightmares every night since she was separated from her mother. In her eyes, I could see her asking why. She didn't understand why these events had taken place. Neither did I, which limited my ability to help her make sense of them. All she knew is that one day her mother left to work and never came back. So how can we help a child like this make sense of her mother's absence? As we spoke, Mariela seemed extremely anxious and fidgety, grabbing tightly onto her puppy as to ensure that she wouldn't lose the only parent she had left. She was clearly depressed, lethargic, lacking the liveliness that one expects to see in a child her age. Instead, she spoke to me with a terrified look, with a mixture of hope that perhaps I could do something to help her mommy come back, yet not being able to know if she could really trust me. But there are so many faces that haunt me since I began doing this work. There was a young girl who said that she wanted to kill herself because her mother had abandoned her. And the young girl who called 911 looking for her missing mother. There was Danilo, the desperate father, who brought her infant daughter Jacqueline crying uncontrollably to the emergency room, where she was found to be suffering from severe dehydration. And there was Yadira, the young teenager who was arrested at the factory and then psychologically tortured because she refused to provide information about her mother and siblings in order to protect them. As I listened to these stories, I felt an urge to run home to hug my daughters. There were so many presentations of children with severe anxiety, severe depression, clear evidence of post-traumatic stress disorders. And then there were the mothers, who besides the trauma of being torn apart from their children, also suffered humiliating experiences. Like the mothers with nursing infants who were asked to prove that they were indeed lactating. Or Rosa, who told me in tears, "It was so humiliating to find myself in shackles in the courtroom. Like I was one of those violent criminals that one sees on the news. We're decent people and we're not bothering anyone. All we want is to be allowed to work to support our families. In our countries, we're unable to do so. Things there are much worse. There just seems to be no place on earth for us." Her words were giving voice to the collective demoralization felt by an entire community. As a mental health professional, as a father of 2 young children, and as a human being with some compassion for the suffering of others, it is extremely difficult for me to make any sense of these premeditated, officially supported, traumatic separations of children from their mothers and fathers. But perhaps what's most difficult for me to make sense of is the pervasive silence and indifference to these events. We in this room represent a small minority of individuals in this society who feel the urgency to talk about this matter. Most feel detrimental effects of traumatic separations on a child's development, remain indifferent as we witness the abuse of children unfolding in front of our eyes. Indifference to social injustice is one of the most violent acts that may be committed against humanity. I urge all of us to fight indifference, to be mindful of the pain and suffering that these young, innocent victims are undergoing as we speak. The prognosis for these children's mental health is quite clear. Each second that goes by and a child remains separated from her or his mother represents one more experience of severe psychological abuse committed against this child. The clock is ticking, but we can still save many of these children. I want to make a call for all of us to take whatever action is in our power to end the extreme suffering of his children and their families. Thank you.
Thank you.